Little Pony, friendship is magic. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few years, chances are you've heard of this social phenomenon and the controversy it stirred in the last couple of years. The newest generation of My Little Pony was a huge success, not only with its target demographic, but also with an unexpectedly large population of young adults and teenagers, who have become to be known as Bronies. However, an equally large group of people have emerged in response to this trend, who I've decided to refer to as anti-Bronies. These are people who call out Bronies, claiming that they should be watching shows more appropriate for their age. With both sides firmly established, the Brony Wars began. On nearly every YouTube video involving the show now, even just a quick cameo or reference to it, both sides have attacked one another until no end. And this Bronydom has sparked such a controversy that I decided to put in my 2 cents. Should people choose to watch what they enjoy, or should they be watching shows that are a bit more age appropriate? This is my take on the Brony Wars. Okay, first of all, I would like to confess that for a very long time, I was very biased towards this show. I was one of those people who refused to even give it a try. I was one of those people who was afraid that I would lose my credibility and my pride by watching it. Heck, I even avoided Josh's hilarious reviews for a long while. I was adamant. I was never going to get drawn into the show, and no amount of pestering could convince me. And yeah, it was kinda pathetic. However, as time went on and I matured a little, I realized that I can't really judge a show that I haven't seen, let alone followed. So one day, I decided that it was about time I gave the show a fair judgment, and I watched a few episodes on YouTube. And, to my surprise, I liked it. I didn't fall in love with it, but I liked it. Despite my first impressions of the show being kiddie, girly, and completely nonsensical, it was actually pretty clever. The characters are likable, the morals are usually somewhat meaningful, and it got a good laugh out of me every now and again. It didn't always work, but a good chunk of the time it did. So that's my first thought. Don't knock it till you've tried it. Unless you're psychic, which I'm guessing you aren't, it is impossible to judge the quality of something that you've never seen before. Looking back on my stubbornness from before, I can see now that it was pretty stupid of me. I did get some enjoyment out of the show, and I can definitely see why so many people have fallen in love with it. I wouldn't consider myself a fan of the show, but I'm certainly no longer a hater, and that's more than I can say for before. But sadly, that's not all there is to the story. From what I understand, a good portion of the anti-Brony fanbase has given the show a try and still come to that same conclusion. So, what gives? Are these people blind to something great, or are Bronies blind to something terrible? Well, the truth is, neither! For the most part, both sides have a respectable and thought-out opinion on the subject matter. The Bronies, they're just like any other fandom, passionate about what they love and willing to showcase that passion in their DeviantArt accounts, YouTube accounts, or however else they express it. Do I think it's gone too far? In its extremes, yes. My school has an official Brony club, for crying out loud. But I also think that the hate towards Bronies in its extremes has gone just as far, if not farther. I mean, have you seen some of these attacks? These are just plain mean-spirited. While I certainly don't appreciate either side in their extremes, for the most part, neither side is wrong. It's just people having an opinion. And hey, it's perfectly okay to have an opinion. It's okay to disagree, it's okay to argue. The point where it becomes too far, and the point where you become one of those extremes, is with labels. With labels like Brony, Trekkie, or any other fandom being thrown around, individual people are being put more and more into boxes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if we remember that those groups still do not represent each individual person. When we judge those individuals based on those groups they belong to, is where fair judgment gets thrown out the window. Saying that all Bronies are stupid or gay, or saying that all anti-Bronies are stubborn or thick-headed is going beyond judgment and into stereotyping. Who knows? Those people you're attacking might just be your best friend, your spouse, your teacher, your colleague, or any other person you hold respect for. And sure, this might be a silly little feud over a silly little show, but these trends extend to real-world issues. I mean, think back to some of the sadder moments in our world's history, and you'll find that this same use of labeling was a primary cause. Labels like black, woman, Irish, Japanese, Jew. The people in these groups have been majorly prejudiced against at one point or another simply because they belonged to that group. Was it fair? Was it necessary? And most importantly, was it justified? In certain cases, maybe, but definitely not in all. My Little Pony may not be the most extreme example, but it's definitely a very prominent case of how detrimental and hurtful these little feuds can really be. So what do we take home from this? Basically that opinions are opinions and that people are people. It's like that old formula your math teacher used to teach. All grass is green, but not everything green is grass. It's the same basic principle with people and opinions. A group of people may have a similar opinion, but that doesn't mean that all people with that same opinion are similar people. Bronies can come in all shapes and sizes, from all walks of life in all different backgrounds. Bronies can come from anywhere. So how can we possibly expect to describe a group of people as if we're describing one? Oh sure, whatever you think of as the stereotypical brony or anti-brony, I'm sure there's several of them out there. But a vast majority of them are genuine, good, and interesting people who all share a common interest. And we should treat them like the individuals that they are. Whether you like the show, dislike it, or even if you're one of those people who refuse to watch it like I was, opinions do not define a person's character. Judge the opinions and not the people behind them, and you'll find that love and tolerance may not be so hard to come by after all. I'm the Nostalgia Critic. Wait a second.